when you pull on that jersey, you represent yourself and your teammates. And a name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back. Get that through your head.
And here we go.
And it is no good. He missed it. Are you kidding me? The season can't end like that.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Some goofball in a hat and a red shirt. Now he takes off the shirt. He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs to the 50. He runs to the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms. Bare-chested. Somebody stop that man.
Just keeps getting better and better. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the program, otherwise known as NETMA. I am your host, Tyler Falk, on a, broken up week for the show. Of course, Monday was the free agent frenzy. Yesterday was our first show as we recapped a majority of the free agency signings, or at least tried to hit everybody who got signed or re-signed yesterday, along with a couple of additions. Today we'll talk minor league and what craziness is transpiring over in that vein of the SFL, and a little bit extra, but as we typically do, or I should say for the first time in NETMA's history, we've actually kind of been able to take a deep dive. I've been off the last couple of free agencies with, who knows what. But for now, we get to take another crack at what happened over the past few hours. And so we'll just go ahead and get right to it, shall we? Not a whole lot of re-signing since Odette Boudreau and Frank Bernstein signed their contracts. Bernstein signing just before the show on yesterday's show. But what you will see is a lot of yellow, which, typically means a free agency signing. But what you have to remember is there can be, contract versions, teams trying to figure out, where does everybody fit. And after they re-sign and get them into the locker room, they realize we might have to change some things to make sure we get all our guys in here. So with that being said, we see a couple of players making a few changes. Jalen Wells, one of the new additions over in Seattle. He'll be doing the halfback running. That's one of the newer ones. Joey Schwitt rekindles his contract. Corey Menner, who had been announced as coming on board earlier in the free agency, coming into a front office position, finally signs his contract at 90.08. David Orhel, co-owner over in Seattle, signs his contract with an outside linebacker spot. Bernard Patterson moves from Portland to Mexico City at defensive tackle, and a couple other players jumping in as well, including two cornerbacks. Ethan Kai brings his cornerback out of retirement after signing as a D lineman earlier, changes that out to play cornerback this season. Nacho Sicario is back in the fold, of course, with Fort Worth. Jason Williams signs, or re-signs, I should say, with Fort Worth. A lot of re-signings today, not a whole lot of new free agent acquisitions. Noe Terrazas signs, or re-signs along with Johnny Van Man coming on over to play offensive lineman for Sioux Falls. Max Jackson and John Blaines both rekindle their contract. And then Thomas Matthews is the most recent free agency signing. This happening about an hour and a half ago, my local time, here in, the central part of the United States. So not a whole lot of changes, but a couple of updates. I completely forgot and had to be reminded in chat that, there are players that are considered offensive coaches, not necessarily just one player. So that pertains to Jacksonville with the Bleecker Twins, and one of the teams I had mentioned yesterday as being a a team that's not going to be able to take part in the draft, Los Angeles, because the Dunham brothers, those guys are part of a offensive coaching tandem. So with that being said, LA, they have reached out to me personally saying, no, we're going to take part in the draft. We have one spot. We have one person who we have our eyes on. We're going to go ahead and take a look. They never told me what kind of player they're looking for or who they're looking for. Of course, they're talking with those players individually or that position, or maybe they've got their guy already after finding out that they will be picking probably in the top 10, I would say, after the draft order has been officially solidified. So that is where everything lines up. If you want to know where you can get a handy little look at this big ol' off-season hub, go to the NETMA server Discord, link to which is down below in the description. It is in the season 18-19 off-season channel in the NETMA server on Discord. So that is where everything looks up. I'm still updating this sheet as far as where some of the shock free agencies, we'll call them, not necessarily formally announced, but making some changes. And of course, I got to update every single one of the team pages to reflect, where they come from, how many new players they got. So we'll just take a look at Arizona, for instance. I know there's a few free agents on this one here, on this roster for Arizona, but I have yet to go ahead and personally, update them with the former team, or if they've been out of the league for a couple times. In the case of former player, I believe David Tilley. That's a name I don't know off the top, man, where he came from. But David Tilley comes in, didn't play last season, but comes back into the fold for Arizona. And I know he's a new player coming into the fold for Arizona. So, like I said, still lots to update. The entire sheet might not be fully updated with all the free agents and everything until we get to the weekend. So stay tuned for that. I've also yet to update the new SFLm players that have come in throughout the week. Keep your eye on that, especially as we get closer and closer, only about 2.5 weeks away from the SFL rookie draft, which will be always a fun time, and we get to see a whole bunch of these players get their names called. And as we get a lot of these quarterbacks will come off the board, a couple halfbacks should come off the board. I think we'll see a very, very good turnout from the minor league, and a lot of new players will come into the fold this season. Probably around, I want to shoot in the ballpark of around 90 or so new players fresh off their minor league season coming into the fold this season. Hopefully many more. We'll have to see with the end of free agency and re-signing next week. I believe that's the 23rd. Coming up in the off season, of course, tomorrow is not only week 7 in the minor league, but is also the scheduled release date for season 19. We're going to find out who plays who at the convention. All 28 teams in action, 14 games in a span of about, maybe 6 to 9 hours. That's going to be insane. And I can't wait to be there to witness it personally. I know a bunch of you will be there too. But that is where everything stands. That's what's coming up in the off season. Again, the sheet's over on the NETMA server in the season 18-19 off season channel in the NETMA server Discord, down below in the description if you want to join us and take a look for yourself. But let's go ahead now and get to the main portion of the show today. What we were going to talk about, that is the minor league. And so after week 6, the unthinkable has happened of maybe a once in a, I gotta do probabilities. I can't do math in my head, but here we are. There are 6 teams tied up at 3-3, and there's a team that's clinched the playoffs and a team that's been already eliminated from playoff contention. And of course, I'm talking about San Jose. The Flight are undefeated at 6-0. They have clinched not only a playoff spot, but the number 1 overall seed going into the SFLm playoffs. However, on the flip side, we do know a team that is just going to be playing out the rest of their season with not a whole lot to play for, maybe just pride in some game tape. And that, unfortunately, is the defending champion, Madison Lynx. You can't win them all, and unfortunately for the Lynx, they've had to lose them all. They sound like another Lynx franchise, maybe a state over playing women's basketball. They can't seem to win games either, the Minnesota Lynx. So just like the Minnesota Lynx, Madison finds a win versus Lexington or I'm looking at the wrong, there we go, Annapolis in week 8. It's going to be interesting. They're going to have to play good defense against Squarebush in week 8. However, they play a pretty potent Lexington team who can, take care of the football. But just like all the rest of these 3-3 teams, 6 of them all told, Albuquerque, Annapolis, Lexington, Lincoln, Ottawa, and Tacoma, there's a lot of bright spots to be had for each and every one of these football clubs. Now, as we take a closer look at what makes these teams special, you can take a look at Tacoma's passing game for sure, one of the best in the league. They only find themselves 3-3 due to maybe a little bit of a lack of turnovers in some regards. However, they do have a +5 turnover differential, but it doesn't always work out. It's boom or bust for those guys. However, when you take a look at teams like Ottawa and Annapolis, they're on the other side. They've gotten a couple turnovers, but it's been feast or famine in the same vein, more so on the famine side rather than the feasting side. Albuquerque sits right around there at about a 0 turnover differential. And as if we're going to get deeper into what these teams are capable of, we know that Albuquerque loves to play close games, and if they're not playing a close game, they've unfortunately been in the losing end. As far as Tacoma goes, when they're winning, they're winning with authority, +25 in net points in the season. If you want to take a look at who's running the football effectively, there's a couple teams that spring to mind. Of course, Annapolis leads the way with Randy Squarebush, but there's a trio of teams that are right around 650, little high, little low. San Jose, Lexington, and Lincoln both have running backs or running back tandems that have gotten over the 600 mark this season. So look for players from the minor league for those clubs. From San Jose, of course, they have, trying to find my rosters, they have JZ Bacon, that's right, Josh Circle, if you're not already aware, the two-way player out of San Jose. For Lincoln, of course, that is, wow, I should know this name, and I just scrolled past his name as well. I should know who my running back is. That's Logan Lee. Lee has really turned it up a notch after the first 3 games, I think. I think he's really coming to his own. This past week versus the undefeated Flight, the offense was a little sluggish. That has to be worked on. That's something that I've been working on as we continue to move forward. And as far as the final team, I mentioned as far as having a pretty good running back tandem, that's, of course, Lexington, led by Christian Pierce. So maybe do we see a trio of Pierces now that I'm looking at it, and now that I'm actually having a chance to sit down for once and take a look at what's going on? There's a trio of Pierces in the SFL now, and that includes maybe a possibility for Indianapolis to go with a 2-back system. Brad Jones, Colin Pierce, Christian Pierce, and Randy Pierce. That's maybe a little bit of a hat trick. We got the Blackwells. We got a bunch of different families here in the SFL that love to play. So you never know. As Chad Rowland says here in chat, Indianapolis Ramblers. Good to see everybody here in chat again. Special shout outs to everybody joining us. Thanks for tuning in whenever and wherever you are. And it doesn't have to be live. It can, of course, be sometime down the road. What I'm really looking for in the last 2 weeks of the regular season is for teams that maybe are falling back to a 500 record to not really overthink too much. And for the same team, for the teams that are just pushing up into the 3-2 bracket, your Adams, your Miners, your Calvary, those 3 teams, to just build on that momentum for Lincoln, for Annapolis, and for Tacoma, for those clubs to get rid of the plays that maybe don't really work too well or haven't really worked so well, rekindle some things and rebuild. Games are tomorrow starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time, as well as 9 p.m. Eastern for that second half of the block. So really looking forward to see what these minor leaguers can do as we close out the regular season for the minor league, and as we close another chapter of the off season here in the SFL. A week and a half to go for the off season here in the SFL. Of course, that all comes down to the draft, the 29th, if I've got my, no, 25th through 26th. That's the SFL rookie draft right after the championship game on the 24th. So there will be no show tomorrow, as that's the schedule release show and the week 7 of the minor league. So our next show will be Friday afternoon, evening time, 7 p.m. Eastern, right back here on YouTube. But we are going to break down the schedules that I think are going to be maybe a little bit walks in the park from first glance, and maybe some teams that might struggle out of the block, having to face some teams now that we have a pretty good look at where these clubs shape up with how everything is going to go, in my opinion. Again, official predictions will come closer and closer to the first week of the season. Maybe we'll do a SFL content creator roundtable once again. Keep your eyes peeled. All right, everybody, I will see you Friday. Enjoy the minor league and the schedule release tomorrow, and we'll catch you back here on Friday. Until then, everybody, good morning, good afternoon,